because we are building our digital vision on 3 pillars. The first of them, it's customer obsession. The second one, it's a culture of innovation. And from this perspective, Mashreq is a very interesting organization because it's a bank. So he has the DNA of a bank, but it's a bank with a very strong innovation and entrepreneurship culture. And the third pillar, it's our desire, or Mashreq desire, to build an ecosystem of partnership, to partner with various companies in order to speed the things up, in order to have access to new technology, in order to develop a complete ecosystem.
It's very refreshing to hear that you guys have a very clear objective in terms of where you guys want to hit, where you guys want to go.
What we want to do, we want to help our clients to rise every day, to fulfill all their financial needs, to fulfill their goals, and to have the finance power to reach these goals.
I want to welcome you to the second season of Couchonomics with Arjun. Join us this season as we go beyond fintech and payments and embark on the journey into the future of financial services, a future which will be shaped by existing and new developments in technology and innovation, including and not limited to the likes of embedded finance, open banking, ESG, various versions of metaverse, decentralized finance, digital currencies, and other trends. On the couch, we're going to have the most influential and progressive-minded founders, executives, investors, regulators, innovators, and industry commentators from across the MENA region and beyond. Join us as we unravel a multitude of layers of the financial services industry and try to learn how technology will continue to impact the world that we live in. Couchonomics with Arjun is proud to collaborate with some of the most respected and innovative names in the world of payments, fintech, and technology. Arjun is a reliable end-to-end payment solution that provides innovation and flexibility to help businesses achieve their ambition faster by turning payments into a strategic growth driver. Get everything you need with 2U, a Saudi-based super app for delivery, mobility, on-demand services, and a lot more. 2U connects you to everything you need to enrich your daily lives by building an ecosystem across its end consumers, merchants, and reps. Visa is a world leader in digital payments with a mission to connect the world through the most innovative, convenient, reliable, and secure payments network to enable individuals, businesses, and economies to thrive. GDA is a leading fintech and payment solution provider founded in Saudi Arabia, expanding rapidly across the region with established operations in UAE and Egypt. GDA's vision is to empower merchants with the tools to start, manage, and grow their business. M2P pioneers next-gen fintech through innovative offerings across payments, lending, and banking landscapes. Their comprehensive tech stack powers end-to-end banking services, BNPL, customized credit cards, prepaid cards, and more.
Welcome to today's episode of Couchonomics with Arjun. Joining me on the couch is Radu Topliceanu. It was a name that I had to actually recite maybe a dozen times, and I hope I got it right.
You are doing perfect.
All right, thank you. So Radu actually is EVP and Head of Neo in Personal Banking with Mashreq. With that, I'd like to welcome Radu to the couch.
Yeah. Thank you, Arjun. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a great honor for me to represent Mashreq, even though I'm quite new to the organization. I joined like 8 months ago. Prior to this, I used to work in Romania, in Societe Generale, in Singapore, in Standard Chartered, and in other regional groups in Europe. So
yeah, and you also obviously worked back in your home country in Romania.
Yeah, Romania, it's a great place and a very exciting place to be as a banker because the system is very, very dynamic. It's a huge of progress happening in the last 15, 20 years. Actually, my whole banking career was overlapping the exciting development of the market. So it was a very interesting period.
Well, I haven't had the opportunity to work in Romania. Unfortunately, we came very close to doing some work there. But I hadn't ever been there till last year, and then I made 2 trips in 2 months. And I think I enjoyed not only just the hospitality of the people, but you're correct. In the sense, I came across some very interesting work and sort of development happening in the overall sort of financial services scene, right? Having said that, we're not going to be talking about Romania today. We're going to be focusing.
We can have a special episode. If
we can always do that. We can always do that. No, that's we'll put that in season 3 if we have one. But Radu, I'm conscious. You've obviously been with Mashreq and the neobanking side only for the last sort of 8 or 9 months. But I think just for the sake of the audience, right? Because the audience goes beyond just the UAE for my podcast. Fortunately, I think maybe the first good question is just give us a brief history of sort of Neo, right? What were the drivers behind it creating, the neo banking arm or the neo banking business or the digital attacker, whatever these days the consulting firms want to call it, right? And what would be very interesting is to sort of paint a picture of where you guys are today since you started.
Yeah, I think if you want to understand Neo, it would be useful to understand a little bit about our, let's say, digital vision that we are having, because we are building our digital vision on 3 pillars. The first of them, it's customer obsession. We want to build a culture which is all the time putting the customer in the center of all our thinking of all our builds. So that's a very important thing.
Sure.
The second one, it's a culture of innovation. And from this perspective, Mashreq is a very interesting organization because it's a bank. So he has the DNA of a bank, but it's a bank with a very strong innovation and entrepreneurship culture. So this makes Mashreq extremely unique. And the third pillar, it's our desire, or Mashreq desire, to build an ecosystem of partnership, to partner with various companies in order to speed the things up, in order to have access to new technology, in order to develop a complete ecosystem. So this is the vision, let's say. And now if you are thinking about Mashreq Neo, both for individual and Neo Biz, which is actually for our companies, this is exactly using these 3 pillars, a complete digital proposition, end-to-end digital for our customers, which answer exactly the 3 pillars that I meant. It was launched like 6 years ago, and I think it went a very long way. I think if you are looking at our current capabilities, we are second to none in the market. If we are looking at our customer experience, I think we are by far one of the best in the world, I would say, not only in UAE, but we are very strong on this. We've been recognized by the market. For example, from Euromoney, we received 4 years in a row the honor to be nominated like the best digital bank in the Middle East. So I think it's very well recognized, and which is more important for us, we are very well recognized by our customers. They are very happy with our services. They are happy with the journeys that we are building with them. The customer experience, it's suited to their needs.
So I'm going to come back to the 3 pillars because there are a couple of interesting angles out there. One is around partnerships, and I will come to that later. The second is about how do you actually build and maintain a culture of innovation and customer obsession. Because with all due respect, right, it's not the first time banks have said this. I've been only around for about 20 odd years hearing banks. I've been hearing customer obsession from banks for 20 years. I can
tell you an interesting real thing about this. I was in a different bank in 2008, 2009, when the financial crisis came.
Happened. Yeah.
And all the banks were trying to reinvent their paradigm. Yeah? And from a very much product-driven approach, everybody wanted to become customer-centric.
Totally agree.
And there was a company, I think it's Forrester, which done a survey. They selected a number of organizations and they asked the CXOs from the companies how customer focuses their organization. 80% of these senior executives said, we are completely customer-oriented. Customer is in the center of our life. We're customer-obsessed. All the nice words, Then those guys were a bit sneaky and they went to the customers of the same organization. Yeah. Do you know what was the percentage of clients which believed the organization or customer-centric?
I don't know the percentage, but I can guess it was abysmally small.
Yeah, it's like 1/10 of the CXO. So indeed, it's a very nice word, but it's
hard
work and commitment to put it in practice.
Yes, it does. I do. So coming back to the question I had, right? So talk to me. So we're now starting to see both digital banks. We have digital attackers, which are coming out of, if I may use the term, incumbent banks. We have pure play digital banks. There's one called VO, which just recently launched. I think they have a B2B and a personal proposition. You also have, in my language, the sort of neo banks who don't necessarily have a banking license or a balance sheet, but can front a bank. I think front as a bank. One notable example is Yap, who's had their own interesting journey. So this space is obviously, I wouldn't use the word crowded. I think we're a bit early to say it's getting crowded, but it's actually getting more and more competitive. So where does Neo, right, position itself in the market now? And let me ask you the second side of the same question, because I do think that there is. How do you balance between the incumbent bank and Neo so that you don't land up sort of cannibalizing yourself, right? So rather than competing with the external competitors, you're actually, you're growing, but you're growing at the cost of your incumbent bank. Yeah. So how do you manage?
I will start with the second part of your question. And I would say that for us, both of them can exist in parallel. And the way that the client chooses one or the other, it's very much based on the customer needs. Let me elaborate. There are things for which the customer wants speed, wants straight-through processing, wants instantaneous answer, and 24/7 availability. And this is digital, pure digital play. So if a client needs all these things, then the natural choice for the client is Neo. But then there are clients which might have more sophisticated needs, or they might feel the need to interact with a human. And then this is the traditional part of the bank. Probably one very good example is mortgage. You can, of course, digitize the process quite a lot, maybe even end to end. But still, there would be customers which, because of the long-term commitment of a mortgage, because of the more sophisticated product, they feel the need to speak with a person. Yeah, so this is the way that we are making sure we're not cannibalizing by catering to, I would say, slightly different set of needs from the customer. Now, if I go to the first part of your question about Neo, we are a pure digital play proposition offered by a universal bank. Let me put it like this. And I think in this space, as you rightfully said, there are a lot of competitors. There are some which you haven't mentioned, but they will come. These are the big techs which are developing their financial arms. Yep. And I think these are
we're going to talk about embedded finance.
One of the biggest challengers, let's say, for the banking space.
Okay, so coming back to your first question. If I then sort of, I don't have a crystal ball, but if I was to just, project what you've said and you've looked forward and you said, a customer's needs determines which side of the bank they want to interact with. The fact of the matter is I can take, I'll take myself as the customer because, why shouldn't I? I have needs for both, right? I'll be honest with you, for my credit card, I don't want to meet anybody. Right, and if I have a straight-through process, which is completely digital, where I can upload everything and there's no wet ink required, I'm happy to go through a completely digital process. But then there might be products, whether that is wealth management, whether that is mortgages, where I do want some interaction. But I'm at the end of the day the same customer, right? Yeah. Is the future then some sort of a hybrid mix of the two?
I think the future would be very much digital. Our digital capabilities are offered both for neo clients and, let's say, for traditional banking customers, but I think more and more the things will go into digitalization. And I'll pick on the first example that you gave about your needs to invest. We are extremely good in digitizing the investment journey, We have launched a lot of new products and a lot of innovation in this space. The last one, it's called thematic investment. We put at our clients' disposal investment vehicles for specific areas, and they can start with very small amounts, like $100 a month or something like this. So more and more things are going to be digitalized, and you are going to ask for a human interaction only for very limited.
And for that, you guys will have good AI chatbots.
You'll have chatbots. You are going to have, in the end, if the chatbot cannot answer your needs, then you'll get to a human. And chatbots, again, it's a very good example. We are doing a lot of things there. We are using conversational AI in order to power our chatbots, and more use cases are successfully answered by the bots.
All right. Are you in a position to sort of share the scale of your business today, or is that asking for too much information?
We are not sharing so much numbers on the specific segments.
And so what sort of level of growth are you experiencing year on year as a percentage term, if I may ask?
I wouldn't give you a percentage, but I would say that we are probably the fastest growing bank in the region in terms of number of clients.
Okay. All right. So let's project 3 years from today, right? What does success look like for Neobank? For Neo, sorry.
Yeah. I think there are several axes on which we are going to measure our success. The first of them is customer satisfaction.
Okay.
As I said, we are truly customer obsessed, and all the things that we are building are in order to answer a customer need. So a better customer experience, higher customer satisfaction, this would be the best measure of our success.
And do you regularly measure that today?
Yeah, of course. We are having various ways of measuring. It's in the objectives or KPIs or however you want to call them of everybody in the company, so not only specific
And you're
functions.
doing an honest job with measuring it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I checked that.
Yeah. I'll part this question. I'll come back to it because it's an interesting one. So the first success of our measure will be the satisfaction of our customer. I would say the second measure of our success would be our reach, because when I joined 9 months ago, we are very much focused on UAE business. But now if you are looking, already our group CEO announced we obtained the digital banking license in Pakistan.
Yes.
We are expanding our presence in Egypt.
Yes.
We are going to expand our presence in the Gulf countries. So we are transforming in a regional powerhouse. Mm-hmm. So this would be, in my opinion, the second measure of our success. The third one, very important, would be the number of customers and profitability. Mm-hmm. Because you're mentioning earlier the neobanks and a lot of newcomers, which are very much in a game of acquiring clients of whatever cost, mm-hmm. with some hope to monetize them down the road.
Yeah.
We are in a different
hope is the right word for some of them.
Yeah, we are in a completely different situation. So our success will also be measured by our financial performance.
Right. No, fair enough. I think those are sensible metrics. I think that's and what I like is that there is a mixture of expansion, which is I think quite interesting, because if you've got a model which actually works, arguably you could replicate it in a localized manner, and why shouldn't you? Because I guess that's one of the advantages of being digital. I do welcome this obsession with customer KPIs and making them a part of your day-to-day culture, introducing them into your personal KPIs and so on and so forth. And obviously, at the end of the day, if you're not growing and not growing profitably, well, what's the point of business, right? Yeah. Where we're not, you could be a charity service, and that's fine too, yeah. Right?
I'll just come back to the customer satisfaction, because for me, what's important is the trend. I mm-hmm. want to see a progressive trend, an upward trend in the measuring. The number itself, it's relevant, but it's much more important, the trend. And I'll tell you why. As I told you before, I used to work in the various groups in Central and Eastern Europe. And one of the countries where I worked was Czech Republic. Okay. And in Czech Republic, the NPS was negative.
Right.
Yeah. So if I was doing a comparison across the 8 or 9 markets that I was managing, Czech Republic was the poorest in terms of NPS. But this is a country specific. The average NPS in the country was negative. It wasn't that the bank was performing poorly. It's simply a different perception of the baseline is very different from market to market. So for this reason, the number itself doesn't mean so much, but the progression and year on year increase in customer satisfaction, that's what we are aiming for.
And I think you're correct, and I think that is, and it's actually quite challenging, isn't it? Because every year your customer profile keeps changing, you add new products and services, so therefore your TAM changes. So I think I buy into that whole fact that yes, number is important, but I think the trajectory is equally important, if not more important.
I would say more important.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Take a step back. We talked a little bit. We obviously talked about digital banking. I know you've only been in the region for 9 months, but you're a banker. You've seen the world. You've seen you worked in the East, you worked in the West. So the concept of digital banking isn't new. Your honest opinion on the current state of digital banking in the MENA region?
Very honestly, I'm impressed.
Okay.
Positively impressed.
Let's make it. Negatively impressed would have been a bit worrying, but yes, good to hear.
So I'm very much positively impressed.
What makes you positively impressed?
First of all, I think the regulatory environment, at least in UAE, where I'm already familiar, it's very good and it's very supportive for digitization.
Okay.
There are things which are available here which I haven't saw in many markets. So the very existing of EFR, it's approved in this direction. It's an opportunity given to the whole market to use facial recognition in order to onboard the client. That's amazing. I haven't saw it available in many markets, powered by the government and powered by the official information. So these sort of things are very important. So regulatory environment, I think it's very strong and it's very favorable to development of the digital banking. That's one thing. Then Dubai especially was a place which attracted a lot of talents in the last years, I would say. And because of this, you are seeing a lot of innovation happening in the market, and you are seeing a lot of progress done by many of the banks. So I think as a market, Dubai, it's extremely advanced. Now, I was pleasantly surprised, for example, visiting Pakistan to find out also that there are capabilities which will be very good for digital banking, to support digital banking. So I think that the region, it's well positioned and it's quite advanced in terms of capabilities.
No, I agree. So, we've got a young, youthful population. We're tech savvy, or the vast majority of it. You're right. The regulation has and is moving in the right direction. We obviously have open banking, open finance. I mean, that's definitely there. It's attracted a lot of talent more recently. It has over the last decade. I've been here 12 years. So you've been here 9 months. I've been here 12 years. And I've actually seen that there's been a distinct shift in talent. And I think over a period of time, we're actually getting good technology players, right? Not just fintechs, but people who provide technology, which I think is required, right? So I agree. You spend time in Southeast Asia, right? And I'm going to put you on the spot right now. Compared to Southeast Asia and the Middle East, what are the distinct differences? And what is it? Are there any things we can learn from Southeast Asia here?
Well, I think Southeast Asia has a very specific way of I wouldn't say gamify the banking, but to democratize, let's say, the banking. If you are looking at mobile banking app in South Korea, for example, it's so vivid, so full of pictures, so full of emojis and color and everything. It's very, very democratized, I would say.
Agreed.
That's one thing. The second thing, and I know Kartik was here, and he's the payment guy.
It's been about a year now.
Yeah, when I joined the bank in Singapore, in one of my first days there, I wanted to buy a glass of orange juice. There was this small machine which was making the orange juice on the spot, and then I wanted to pay. And the array of payments which were available there was absolutely amazing. Remember, this was 2018, and you already were able to pay with your face, with your watch, with your card, with your phone, with you name it. It was possible. So in terms of technology, it was very, very much advanced. Now, I haven't followed in the last 4 years. I am not so much aware how much progress was there. But what I see today in Dubai, it's very much at par with what I saw there years ago.
About 3 to 4 years. No, and I think you're correct. I think you've got a massive Chinese influence, which is which is distilled down into Southeast Asia. I had the opportunity to work about 4 years in Southeast Asia. I wasn't there full time, but I used to go every month. And I'll be very honest with you, during those years, because I was actually working between both the Middle East and Southeast Asia, for me, Southeast Asia became the sandbox. Yeah. Right. That's kind of where I learned what I then brought, if I may say, put it into the production environment. And then I said, let's customize it and bring it into the UAE, and not just the UAE, but Saudi Arabia and so on and so forth. Right. So if I take that discussion forward, right, I'm going to try and simplify this conversation. Apologies, Radu. I'm going to keep putting you on the spot. It's sort of my style. So if you take this whole digital banking definition, and there's a number of ways to kind of cut this banking world, and I don't think these are mutually exclusive, but just to humor me, let's try and segment them into 3 sectors, right? So you have digital attackers coming out of universal banks, right? Very much like the bank you run. Okay, you have pure play digital banks who are fully licensed with their own balance sheets. And then there are neobanks which are fronting either an incumbent bank, or they're working with several banks at the back, right? But they sometimes they're definitely not fully licensed to be a bank, and they definitely don't have their balance sheet or his full balance sheet. How does this all play out in the sense that is the future going to be all of these guys are going to be out there playing? If that's the case, are we going to have crazy proliferation? Right? Because at the end of the day, let's be honest with you, we've got about 9 million people in the UAE, even if it grows to 10, 11 million. A very significant percentage of those people are sort of underbanked, and their needs for banking are basic. Yeah. You go to the kingdom, it's in the sort of 35 million. Yeah. It'll grow, maybe it'll become 40. And then, unless and until you go into Egypt and Pakistan, and Pakistan, if you don't take the wide. But if I just take the GCC for a second, right? How do you see the competitive forces play out, in the sense, do you really think these neobanks have a chance to succeed in this market with lack of scale?
Look, for me, the answer, it's not in the type of the organization. Okay. Like if it's a neobank, if it's an incumbent.
So it's not a business model issue.
It's not so much a business model issue. It's more about your business model. And I think the future is going to be digital, and the winners are going to be organizations which are customer obsessed. I know I'm repeating this, but I truly believe in this, which are able to master their data and to provide a personalized engagement to the client. I think this is the profile of an organization which is going to be a winner.
But not the ownership of the value chain?
That's exactly what Mashreq Neo it is.
Right. But what about the ownership of the value chain? Right? Because I would have imagined in something like banking, does it not make a difference that you own the value chain versus you don't?
Of course it makes. But I think there will be possible business models like the one that you said. If you are taking just one vertical and you are becoming very good on it, you might carve a niche for yourself. Owning the full value chain, and this is the case for Mashreq Neo, of course, it gives you an advantage. And there is another advantage that we are having with our business model. It's the power of the brand. Because we are well recognized, we are very much appreciated by our customers, and there is a trust which has been built and which is there in the market, which is very difficult to replicate. And then, of course, you need to innovate and to come with new products and new proposition. And I don't think innovation is the territory of neobanks or digital-only players. Mashreq, again, it's a very innovative organization.
No, I totally agree with you. Innovation is not anybody's monopoly.
Exactly.
Right? I totally agree with you. I think, some of the older companies can actually innovate because they have some of the building blocks which some of the new guys don't, right? Which is, for example, customer trust. The existence of brand, the fact that they're profitable, they can furnish it. So let me come to a question. This is all great, right? But let's be honest. Digitally transforming a bank, which has been around for, decades, is not easy, right? Like,
I fully agree with you.
Right? It's not, we can all have very clear mantras and we all should have these goals, I agree. In your experience, and you can either use Neo as an experience or just generally your own knowledge because of being a banker for so many years, what are the 3 or 4 big challenges for universal incumbent banks who go down these digital journeys? And then I'm going to add a second part. Why do so many of them not really succeed?
Yeah. Okay, if you're talking about examples of not succeeding, I would use past experience, not Neo, because Neo it's a very special case which is succeeding.
Yes,
and I'll elaborate a little bit more later on how Neo is succeeding on this. I worked in the digital space for 20 some years now. My first role in digital was starting with 2002. When digital banking means to write a long SMS and you have to remember where to put a dot, when to put a comma, and this sort of things. And since then, I was around digital all this time, and I was involved in digital transformation in multiple organizations. Mm-hmm. Some of the transformation were quite successful. Some of them were more painful than the others. Now, one common issue that I saw in all the organization was the culture. Because if you want to do a digital transformation, it's not enough to say one morning to the people, look, you are not a product manager anymore, you are a product owner, and starting with today, you are going to work agile. It's not like this. You have to change the culture. You have to let the people explore. You have to let the people experiment, fail fast, try again until they're finding the right things. And they have to change their mind. If you want to do the digital transformation, like taking a standard product, a paper-based product, and just to push it into the digital channels, you are going to fail. You have to start with a digital thinking. You have to go to think even like a tech company if you want. So I would say this is one of the common issues I saw in the past. Another one might be technology legacy, because some of the organizations are sitting on top of a very complex and spaghetti-like architecture, and then it's very difficult to create a right digital proposition. You have to change maybe some of the core elements. You have to create a middleware, then you have to build the channels. Might become very complex because of the technology legacy. And the third one I would say is the lack of focus, because if you want to really drive a digital transformation, you have to do it from top. You have to have a CEO which understands this and not only preaches digital transformations, but lives digital transformation. He's the driving force into this. And I was being lucky enough to work in such organization. For example, in my previous role, in 3 years, we doubled the number of digital mobile banking users of the bank. We more than doubled the transactions. We introduced new application and everything, but this was because all of us, like the management team, were really living this digital transformation. And this takes me to Mashreq Neo now, because our group CEO, it's very much the driving force for our digital transformation. The technology stack is very solid, and we are working and we are improving it each and every moment. And the cultural transformation, it's already there. I worked in multiple companies which are claiming to be agile, and agile could mean anything, everything or nothing, Mashreq, it's one of the cases where agile, it's a reality.
Okay.
I'm managing various teams. Each and every team contains business and squads, so they are able to come to market very fast with the things that they're building by themselves. It's not the old way of working. You're writing down the specification, give it to somebody, then waiting, receiving the end result, which it's not what you asked for. No, we are truly working in an agile manner, and this is happening across the whole organization. So for these reasons, I think Mashreq is a very successful example of digital.
Okay. We talked, or you mentioned, collaboration and partnerships at the start of the conversation, right? Over the last sort of 5 years, maybe a little bit more, we have actually seen a gradual growth in fintechs, right? Whether these are infrastructure providers who can help you navigate around the legacy infrastructure, right? Yeah. Or they are product providers or people who are now starting to provide you with, tools and intervention, solutions like AI and so on and so forth, right? What has been, so twofold questions. A, what is Mashreq's philosophy in terms of how you are engaging with that, the fintech world? And is it something that you guys are doing a lot of? Or do you prefer to sort of build in-house more than partner?
Yeah. I will start with the second question. We are doing a lot of it, and we have the proof to show. We've been the first bank in the region to build a portal for APIs developers. We open an innovation hub together with DFIC. So we are doing this sort of collaboration on a structural level, not only for individuals but also for companies. So yes, we are doing a lot of collaboration with fintechs. Now, the way that I see the collaboration with fintech, it has multiple ways. You mentioned, and it could be a very good way to bring a certain functionality very fast to the market, because there might be a fintech which comes with a very streamlined offering or a very streamlined product or process, and it's easy through collaboration just to integrate through an API and be very fast to go to the market with a very successful proposition. We work with fintechs by investing. We are investing in Cashew, for example, in order to give buy now, pay later at the point of sale. So there are multiple ways to do it, and we are doing it quite a lot. But collaboration is not only with fintechs. We are also an innovator in terms of cross-border collaboration. We are working with Federal Bank of India to give the opportunity to our Indian customers to open a non-resident Indian account in India without human interaction, everything digital, end-to-end. That's a first in the market and was done through a cross-border collaboration between two banks. It's quite a nice innovation, and this shows that collaboration helps you bring new products to the market.
No, I totally agree. And I think the future is about collaborating, because I think 10, 15 years ago when fintechs came around, there was all this write-up about fintechs versus the banks, right? And that was basically the rhetoric, right? Every article was about, I think over a period of time, what it's become is fintechs and banks, and actually the fintechs have realized, or at least the vast majority of them have realized, that their ability to actually succeed is limited if they don't actually work with the traditional providers, with their banks and insurance companies. I'm going to come to the topic of embedded finance and BaaS.
But just one thing, because please. I wanted to come back, because you said, what's the model? And I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all model. You can build in-house things and to do it extremely fast and come with a very innovative proposition, like we've done, for example, with NeoNext, which is our offering from 8 to 18 years old. Yeah, and it's a wonderful offer, and I really love it because it offers the youngster their first banking account, and it helps them to understand how to manage their money in a very safe environment, because it's full of parents' control, but it's also a way for them to experiment. They can set up saving goals, or they can set goals in order to receive some finance from their parents and stuff like this. And this is all in-house built. So there is no one size fits all, just build it or collaborate. It depends on what you are planning to achieve.
Yeah, so that's interesting, right? Because I think my question was not either or. My question is, it is an and, but do you lean towards one more than the others? So I've seen some banks very clearly lean towards the fact that they prefer to build as much in-house as they can. They'll partner where it's appropriate. And then there are some other banks who are saying, no, we're going to be very, very acquisitive, right? For exactly the reason that you mentioned, which is speed to market, so on and so forth. And maybe they haven't culturally evolved as much so that they feel that actually they can accelerate their digital transformation. So I totally appreciate it. But I think what's interesting to hear is that you're saying you guys make that decision based on the opportunity, right? There is no overarching sort of strategy towards.
There is a general direction to extend the collaboration with fintechs as much as possible. Whenever it's possible, we are considering it, and to build an ecosystem for us.
Right. So that comes with some challenges, right? That not necessarily, forget the technology challenges. There's two types of challenges that I see come through. As a matter of fact, just to let you know, I was actually quite involved in the Cashew Mashreq relationship and sort of how it came together, because it actually was catalyzed by an end customer who was actually my client. But so I saw that deal very, very closely. I know the team at Cashew fairly well. Coming back to the question, there are two areas. One is there is still regulatory ambiguity in terms of how banks and fintechs can work, right? Because at the end of the day, you're the bank, you seem to take the dominant regulatory and compliance risk. A number of these fintechs are still regulated in these quasi sandbox environments, right? They're not necessarily under the auspices of the central bank. So one question was going to be, how do you tackle that? And I'm sure that concerns you. And the second is in terms of risk appetites. Right, fintechs typically come with a higher risk appetite. They're more entrepreneurial. Banks have very well developed risk appetite. You guys have gone through. You're bigger. The price of making a mistake is much bigger. How are you guys harmonizing on these two areas?
Yeah, I think it's a very common issue, and I think again Mashreq it's uniquely positioned in this because, as I said, we have the DNA of a bank, but also have the DNA of an innovator.
Right.
So for us, following the regulation, being compliant, that's non-negotiable.
Agreed.
We are not going to cut any sort of corners. We are not going to do anything which is interpretable, let's say. So this is the starting point for each and every conversation. We understand that in collaborations with fintech, some borders might be blurred, but in the end, we are aware that we are bearing the responsibility. So there is no corners being cut. There is no hesitation in implementing all the regulation.
Okay.
So that's the starting point. That's non-negotiable for us. Now, in terms of the risk appetite, we are having very clear risk levels that we are ready to take, and we are judging each and every situation in accordance with our risk appetite.
And you're able to normalize that, and I think you're able to talk to the fintechs, because I think a lot of the relationships I've seen historically fall by the wayside is because the risk appetite is so far apart that the two just don't come together.
Look, you are having multiple conversations. Some of them are going to materialize if you are meeting a partner which understands the environment in which you are operating, the regulatory framework, and the limits.
I'm going to put you on the spot. So I'm a fintech, let's assume. What's your advice to me to engage with banks?
Solve a real customer pain. Okay. Find something which the customer really needs and come with a solution which answers a real customer need. Don't try to replicate or to emulate things which have been done. Identify your place, the place which the customer really needs you, and come with a proposal there.
Okay, that's good advice. I think it's an advice that these guys get given quite often. Most of them don't follow it. Well, I wouldn't say most of them, but some of them don't follow it. And unfortunately, some of them have to pay the price for it. So switching topics, right? So we have this very interesting, if I may say, shift in the world of banking which is going on. I'm not trying to say that banking is going to completely radically change, but and I'm going to try and build this sort of storyline because I do think that there is a symbiotic relationship out here. So we have regulation which is moving towards open banking and open finance, right? In simple terms, that's going to allow easier access of data, leveraging APIs and other sources or other channels. Which is then encouraging banks to look at different business models in terms of how can we really monetize the shift in regulation. Banking as a service is one, banking as a platform is another. Those are the two. And then on top of this sits this sort of, the $7 trillion opportunity. I don't know if it's 7 trillion or it's not, right? Which is everything to do with embedded finance, which means, and I think you alluded to the big tech coming into financial services, and Apple has proven the point, which is non-financial services players, retailers, telcos, name it, whoever they are, start offering financial services with the help of fintechs and banks. How real is the BaaS, banking as a service opportunity in the UAE or the Middle East from your perspective, from a Mashreq perspective? But let me sort of phrase that in two parts. One is, it'll be very useful to get your view on how do you define BaaS, because there are 50 definitions out there. I don't think there's any right or wrong one, right? I think there are some. And then the second half is, do you as Mashreq, as neobank, see BaaS as something which is going to become a sizable part of your business going forward?
Yeah, so I will start with the second question.
You always need to start with the second part, but there you go.
No, because it's a very clear yes.
Yeah.
We are already building banking as a service capabilities. We are already offering them. We're already having partners in this direction, and it is and will become a more and more important part of our
proposition.
So that's a very clear answer.
Right.
Now, coming back to how important it is, let's take one step back, because you need to have a regulatory framework, first of all. And this, I know it's in the making here, and the final form of the framework will drive the traction of the BaaS. Now, I was working in Europe for quite a while, and there, there is the famous PSD2, which is regulatory, mandatory. Each and every country was supposed to implement the legislation and to make sure that it's used.
But the banks were reluctant.
It's not only the banks. The banks that I used to work were not reluctant. We understood the need of it, and definitely we complied for the mandatory part, but we also tried to identify new business opportunities. But the pickup by the clients and the pickup by the fintechs in the region was very low. Maybe things will improve in the future, but I didn't saw huge traction at that moment in that.
And do you think from a customer perspective, it was just lack of education? Because I grew up in Europe too, and I've seen the shift of open banking, maybe from the sidelines, although I have a bank account there too. Vast majority of the consumer, even corporates, were blissfully unaware of what it meant to them. As a matter of fact, people didn't even know that data was theirs.
Yeah. Probably the most used example was account aggregation.
Yeah.
I have accounts in multiple banks in one country, so I would be able to aggregate. I think it was a miss, both from the banks and the fintechs which tried to use it, but this is something which will change for sure. The fact that they looked at this account aggregation like a goal in itself. Let's show the client all his accounts. But this is not the goal. No. Let's help the client do the best for him by seeing all these accounts. Let's help the client to improve his financial life. Let's help him to optimize his payments. Let's help him optimize his credit, so on and so forth. And I think this was the part which was a bit missing in Europe. Now I'm seeing it starting to.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that doesn't turn out to be the case out here too, right? Because as you said correctly, account aggregation is great, but the wow factor goes away pretty quickly. Fine, you can see accounts and you can see... Yeah. And as a matter of fact, some of the global banks have been offering some level of account aggregation as long as you bank with them.
Screen scrapping and all this.
And screen scraping's been there for a decade, if not longer. Right?
Until it became not legal.
I'm surprised.
Or borderline.
Or borderline in the sense. No, I do think that there are some very, very clear use cases, I think, on open banking use cases. I also think that this is my personal opinion, is that majority of the monetization of open banking is going to happen if you're really able to make embedded finance fly, right? I think because that allows you to address your target addressable market. Yeah. It reduces your cost of customer acquisition. It maximizes or improves your CAC. It reduces arguably your collection costs, makes risk scoring better. And I think then the banks are willing to a certain extent to say, fine, I'm happy to be disintermediated, right? But I have all these other benefits that are coming through. Yeah. I don't think, my opinion, and I'm sorry, this is your interview, not mine. I think if the banks don't come to the party, right, embedded finance will not realize the true potential it possesses. Payments aside, which I think is already doing well, but if you go into embedded lending beyond just BNPL and embedded savings, I'm not quite convinced that without the banks this will actually happen.
I think some of the banks, including Mashreq, will come to the party because they will understand how this can complement their business model.
And I think that's excellent. And I think if you are expanding into other GCC countries, it is the right time, because I think most of the Middle East, at least the large countries, are looking at that. I'll come to my favorite topic these days because it seems to be front of mind. So we're going to talk a little bit about super apps, right? But I'm not going to talk about super apps in terms of the WeChats of the world or what friends at Kareem want to achieve, which is an everyday app. But I'm going to come with a slightly different spin. I'm going to talk about financial super apps which go beyond banking, right? And I'm going to use an example, a Russian example called Tinkoff, right? Do you see a market for that out there?
Definitely so. And again, it's a direction in which Mashreq is going. And if you are looking at our current proposition and the way that our proposition it's evolving, it's in this direction. In the end, what we want to do, we want to help our clients to rise every day, to fulfill all their financial needs, to fulfill their goals, and to have the finance power to reach these goals. And that means enlarging our offering of financial service and products. And again, our example of comprehensive offering in saving, investment, insurance, the easiness of using this product and everything, it's a proof for this. But there is also a non-financial offering which is there, which is very much related to the lifestyle of the client. So we are building this ecosystem, which in the end will reflect into a super app. And I think that's a very good place to be, building this sort of super app. For me, it's exciting to be there to build it. For client, it's beneficial because they are going to do more within the app, and for the bank, is going to be good in terms of growth, profitability, and everything.
So let me challenge you a little bit out there, right? So I think theoretically it makes perfect sense, and I think you've got a bit of an example in Tinkoff that they have successfully pulled it off. There are some other examples to DBS to an extent, and so on and so forth, who do offer. But one of the concepts of super apps is that it's got to be universal, right, to a large extent, because otherwise it doesn't become super. It just becomes a multifunctional app or a very good app, financial app. It also needs what I call a recruiting engine, right, where you're able to...
You need to curate these offers and to enlarge them all the time.
Yeah, and so how do you keep getting customers at a price? Because let's be honest, onboarding a financial customer is not inexpensive, right? It's a fairly expensive proposition. It's much cheaper to onboard a customer who's using a social messaging app, right? Or who's using ride hailing, although I have an issue with the unit economics ride hailing. It's cheaper to onboard someone who's going to order food.
Yeah.
How are the banks going to be able to convince customers to do those kinds of activities on their platforms?
But there are two sides to a super app.
Yep.
One is the acquisition side that you are addressing, and there are, of course, a lot of marketing mechanisms. The brand is playing a very important role in the acquisition. And again, Mashreq is very well positioned. But then there is an engagement piece in which I have a universe of customer and I engage them more and more. And for me, the super app is very important also in this part.
Agreed.
Because we are having plenty of data as a bank. The more services we are adding, the more data we are having. Now, if we are able to use machine learning algorithms to understand the data and to personalize each and every engagement with our client, I think that's the part where the super app proposition is becoming successful and winning.
Okay, but what will be your recruiting engine? So JP Morgan is building the world's largest travel agency, right? Apparently, because they're already one of the biggest contributors to travel in terms of their credit cards and loans, and they feel that that's how they're going to acquire their customers. what are you going to do? Are you guys going to go buy a delivery company?
I'm not at liberty to give you to give you details right now.
But you do see Neo becoming a full-fledged super app in the market, competing with the other ones.
Absolutely.
That was going to be a very, very interesting story to sort of watch. Then I've got some interesting I'm conscious time. So 2 or 3 areas where super apps or even this sort of new world of digital banking struggles with. One is user convenience versus security, right?
Yeah.
How do you guys trade that off?
Yeah. In some of the organizations that I saw in the past, cybersecurity was an afterthought.
Yep.
You are starting, you are building a journey, you are doing something, and I said, okay, now let's make it secure. This is the wrong way to go. We are doing the security, the cybersecurity, as native to what we are building. From the very moment when you are starting to build the journey, we are building the security around it. So I think that's the key to be successful.
And second question, personalization versus data privacy.
But there is no versus in here.
You're not?
I don't think there is a limitation with the regulations that we are having. I think we can personalize the interaction to a quite extended degree. Again, following all the regulation and all the rules about data privacy, data security, and everything. I see the restriction more in the eyes of the beholder,
Right.
Not in the regulation. Regulation leaves us enough room to personalize the engagement.
No, so Radu, all I have to say, I guess in the end of the conversation is, I have obviously not experienced the new bank side of Mashreq. Apologies for that. I will.
We can fix this
very easily. I'm sure very easily.
You need 3 to 4 minutes to become a Neo client,
and that's what I'm going to do. So I did onboard myself to one of the digital banks earlier this week, just to prove to myself that it could be done. And I'll be honest with you, I was pleasantly surprised. I had my sort of virtual prepaid card within my Apple wallet in about 3 to 4 minutes. And then I made a transfer, which took another 10, 15, 20 minutes from one bank to the other. And, my card was up and running. So I will definitely go. But I think what's very fascinating is that for someone, who has been sort of associated with Mashreq, because I've done some work with Mashreq in the past when I was actually on the retail side of the world, including a number of collaborations. It's very refreshing to hear that you guys have a very clear objective in terms of where you guys want to hit, where you guys want to go. I think what you're trying to do is going to be is going to be fascinating. I'm sure you will pull it off. I do understand the DNA of the organization right from the top to the bottom. It's highly entrepreneurial. It's very much performance driven. And I think that sort of singular thought does exist. So, I do wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
I think we'll touch base. We'll speak more often, but I think we'll touch base in about 6 to 9 months' time to see how you guys are progressing. Because I do think in the next 6 to 9 months, as these regulations become more formalized, I think some of these ideas will take into fruition. Plus, I also think that in the next few months, I do think there's going to be a bit of a clean out on the fintech scene, because I think funding is going to continue being.
That's an interesting.
Yeah, which is good, because I think the cream will rise to the top, and I think for a bank you do want to partner with the best of breed, because at the end of the day you guys take a lot of responsibility towards the regulator, towards the customer, and you cannot be, as you said, flippant. You didn't use that word, that's my word, about things which are regulated. So there's no cutting corners, right? So thank you for sparing your evening.
Let's meet again next year in June, and then we can see how the things evolve. I'm sure you are going to be very much impressed.
I would love to actually come, but my promise to you is that I will download the app within this week, maybe this weekend, and I will come back to you once I've done it with an honest and straight opinion in terms of what worked and what didn't. And I'm sure everything will work. So
I will really appreciate this.
Positive. Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.
Right. Thank you for taking our time this weekend. So that was Radu from Mashreq Neo. He heads their neo banking and personal banking division. He's EVP and head of that business. He's new in the country, but he's not short of ideas. And I hope you found this conversation interesting, because I think you got to know a lot about what Mashreq is doing on their Neo side. I think he's got a view in terms of how the digital banking landscape in this part of the world evolves. I'm actually quite impressed by the fact that he said that he was positively surprised and actually quite excited to see that there's a level of maturity here and there's a platform from which we can grow, which obviously comes with competition. And as he and I agreed, we'll touch base in about 9 months' time or maybe a year's time to see how things are going. So with that, I'd like to say thank you and goodbye till next week.